everyone, my name is Tolulope Oke and I'm a global DEI customer engagement leader at Amazon Web Services.
Hi Tolu.
Hiya.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. So tell us, what is it you actually do today?
So my day job as a global DEI customer engagement leader, and DEI stands for diversity, equity and inclusion, for anyone that's not familiar, is a new role. It's a new role. It's completely new in this DEI industry. It's new for Amazon as well. So my role is to partner with our customers on anything and everything to do with inclusion and diversity and equity. And that can look at thought leadership, that can look at exec engagements, but then that also goes all the way to the other spectrum, such as community work. So projects internationally, projects with partners in neighborhoods and communities. And it can also look in between at events, conferences, summits, anything basically that helps Amazon and our customers fulfill their inclusion aspirations.
So it's not actually, because when I first saw the role, I thought the role was just facing to Amazon to make sure that they are delivering DEI. So it's actually to the customers as well.
Yes. So when I first joined, I was internally facing. So all of the HR staff, paying people fairly, being nice, all of that good stuff, training.
Being nice.
Just being nice. We all have to be nice, just be nice. But actually, this is the first time ever we're taking this work externally and partnering with our customers. And if any of you were to Google AWS customers, you'll see the kinds of people we work with. And those are the kind of people I'm doing this work with as well. So super exciting, super new, lots already on the pad. And I've only been doing it for the last 5 months, but super exciting.
Exciting. So question for people that don't know, what does AWS do?
So AWS is Amazon Web Services, and we are the cloud computing, so the tech hub of Amazon's businesses. So if you think of any major institution, government, financial company, retail company, whoever in the world, 9 out of 10 times their website is hosted on AWS. So if you click a link from most people, Deliveroo, for instance, you'll normally see that within the web page, it would say something like s3.amazon AWS kind of in the email address or in the website address. And that's because their website is hosted on AWS. So we host some of the world's biggest companies and they use our software. And we do a whole bunch of things, but it's basically cloud and tech computing.
So for the geek in me, so basically what you're saying is Amazon provide computing power, because you're not like a 123 Reg or like a GoDaddy.
No, we're not a GoDaddy.
Different level.
Yeah, we host everything back-end, serverless technology.
Right, yeah.
All of that.
Just so we understand.
Yeah, storing data, doing stuff internationally, all of that.
And the data truck as well, which is amazing. Okay, cool. So let's take us back. So obviously you're very senior, very successful, so we're definitely going to get into that. But let's go back. So where did you grow up?
So I'm like Jenny from the block. I grew up Southeast London. I hail by way of Blue Borough, New Cross, and then we moved to...
Sorry, what borough?
Blue Borough, please Google it, okay? Blue Borough, Lewisham Borough. Grew up in New Cross, and then I moved over to Green Borough, aka Greenwich Borough, and actually moved to Woolwich. So that's where I grew up. Those are my areas.
Okay, great. And in terms of siblings, tell us about that. One of how many children?
So I'm one of 7, but technically one of 4 in the sense I'm a quadruplet. So we're 2 boys and 2 girls who were born at the same time.
First quadruplet on YouTube, I'm sure. Especially black quadruplets, because that's very rare, right?
And actually, statistically, when we were born all those years ago, the likelihood of having a pregnancy with quadruplets was actually 1 in a million. And actually, since the increase in the prevalence of IVF, I think it's slightly dropped, but it's still about 1 in every 700,000 pregnancies will result in quadruplets. So not as cheap as twins and triplets. It's a lot more cheap. And I say that as somebody with lots of twins in my family, but it's a lot more rarer to find quads. And I've never met quadruplets before, but I went to college with like 4 sets of twins. Cheap.
Jeez, no shade.
No offense.
So here's the question then. When you're one of 4, when did you realize that you are special? Do you even think you're special?
To be honest, I don't know. It's all I've ever known. So people say, oh, what's it like? I don't know any different. And there's pros, there's cons.
Birthdays, Christmas, like how do you prioritize? Because everyone's at the same time, on the same day.
Exactly. So when I say pros and cons, it means that if one child is getting, nowadays I've got godchildren and I see what they get for their birthdays. It's not times 4, it's divided by 4, right? So when we were growing up, you didn't get times 4 of what one person got. Divide that by 4, honey, make it work. So I think there are pros and cons of that, but I think it's been quite beautiful going through similar life stages with siblings. It's like I always say, like going to school. I never know what it's like to go to school by yourself and not have anyone to sit next to at lunch or someone to play with, because I always have at least one sibling.
So you're like firm. So you don't even have to ask for backup. Like you are,
I mean,
you're coming with a team.
I mean, yeah, pull up, and we all pull up. So it's been nice, and yeah, we spent most of our life in the same educational institutions up until university. And you know, pros and cons. Sometimes people wouldn't be bothered to learn your name or quad.
Oh, really? You just got called quad?
Because they don't want to learn your name. Or I always shared this story actually, like in primary school. And I know that you've got family, but in primary school where, you know, you're like 5, you're 7, you're 10, and you get to have like a little birthday thing. You might invite 5 friends to McDonald's. We never got invited because nobody wanted to use 4 invites on one family.
Oh yeah.
You know? And I remember one girl, I won't say her name, but I remember her. Yeah, I remember who she is. I'm not gonna let that go.
Yeah.
She's like a little house party. She could only invite like 10 or 15 people. And she said to us, can't invite you because if I invite you and your sister, I have to invite your brothers, and that's 2 extra spaces, that kind of thing. So pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely.
We are party starters, so that was her business anyway.
Clearly. Well, you can start your own party. You've got enough.
Literally.
Like you're good.
Literally could start our own party.
So growing up in that kind of environment, how was education for you?
I'm Nigerian, so education is at the forefront of any and everything. And now that I'm older, actually, and I look back, I almost feel like we were encouraged. I'm trying to use my words carefully here, in case my mum watches this. We were heavily encouraged to focus on education, and actually, upon reflection, I would have loved a bit more influence around creative things. But education was really at the forefront. Getting grades, being smart, doing courses that, I guess, the community, and when I say the community, Black, African, Nigerian community, thought would lead down the professions, right? And I'll talk a bit more about that when I kind of speak about my university direction and kind of how some of me and my siblings kind of took different directions. So yeah, things like maths, read your book, Saturday school, summer club, when you just wanted to play outside. You just wanted to play.
Well, I bet you, considering where you grew up, when did you move to Greenwich?
Moved to Greenwich when we were 11 or 12.
Yeah, so Lewisham, we didn't really want to play out anyway.
I mean, yeah, you couldn't play too far. You just play in the doorstep, on the stoop. But don't go too far.
So academics go well, like secondary school, GCSEs go well. What kind of grades are we talking, like A stars?
Yeah, GCSEs goes well. Yeah, I think I got like 3 A stars, 3 A's, got 5 B's, and I got B's in like maths and science. They're not my strong suit.
What's your strong suit?
More English, the arts, history, sociology, those kind of things.
Why do you think you gravitate to what's in it?
So we don't know actually if it's nature versus nurture. So actually, I would say out of the 4 of us, 2 of my siblings are really numbersy, and my sister's an accountant, my brother works in finance. So that's kind of where their strong suits are. And then me and my other brother, we're more arts creative. So my brother works as an editor, so kind of journalism and that kind of world. And I obviously now work in D&I, but also did a history degree. So I don't know how much of it is nature versus nurture, or if it's just environment, not really sure.
Right, so you're a book person, like you like to read?
I mean, I did until I did a history degree at Cambridge. And I'm actually over it. Yeah, I haven't read a book since. I'm joking, I have. Hilarious.
Okay, great. So where do all siblings go to the same secondary school?
Yeah.
Same college?
Same college,
okay,
yes.
Okay.
And then we all finally kind of grow wings when it comes down to university. And I think that was a really transformative period for us and quite necessary. Because like I said, like it's an interesting dynamic when you are a quadrupler, or anybody, you know, if you're a multiple, if you're close in age to any sibling, for instance, or cousins, you can kind of, I won't call it a crisis of identity, that might be too strong, but there's this weird thing about who am I? What is my place in the world? Who am I in the context of my siblings? And actually, who am I outside of that? So going to university was the first time we all got to really explore who we were as individuals in separate universities. You turn up on day 1, you have to make friends, you live with different people. Very few people might even know you're a quadruplet because you're in your own institution by yourself. You develop a personality.
And you're no longer called quad.
Everyone knows your name. And then actually it's an interesting journey then when you come back home for after term time, how do you renegotiate the power balances that you have in your 4?
That's right.
So it's very interesting. And people say to me, you know, would you want to have quads? Probably not. If I'm honest, probably not.
We never know. It's in the DNA.
I won't even receive or claim anything or manifest as the kids are saying in this day and age. I'm just going to let that one go. I'm going to let it go.
So what do you study at A-levels? What subjects?
A-levels, why are you really taking me back into the archives?
Yep.
A-levels, English, Lit and Lang, something like that. Sociology, history, of course, did a degree. And then IT, actually, just to sprinkle a bit of Nigerian excellence.
Hilarious. So then university, where do you decide to go?
So I went to Cambridge, and there's a whole story, which I'm not going to tell, or we'll be here till tomorrow, but there's a whole story about my Cambridge journey. I'll give you the cliff notes.
Yeah.
back then as well, like people don't tend to believe, I didn't really have a lot of confidence. And I think a lot that was due to our dynamics. I look up to my sister in a really weird way, though we're the same age. And so I think it took me a while to come into myself. So when it was applying for uni, career counsellor, I went to SFX, career counsellor, this Jamaican woman, to this day, if I saw her in the street, I wouldn't even recognize her. I think she was like an angel in disguise. She basically says to me, you have the grades to apply for Cambridge, you should apply. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. I go on to our vice principal who had like this little kind of process for applying. Said, I've got the grades for Cambridge, for Oxford or Cambridge, can I apply? He says, no, I've got this group that I've been basically, I was going to use the word grooming, but not in education. But this group that I've been supporting for the last year to apply for Cambridge, you're not in the group, you can't apply. So I said, okay.
You cannot apply?
You can't apply.
What do you mean you can't? Anyone can apply?
I said, you can't apply, that's what he said. I don't make the rules.
At your SFX?
Yeah, I put SFX on Blanc, St. Francis Xavier, yeah. But I've since been back to go and do talks. But because he said that, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's the process. Not really confident, took his word for it, went back. The career counsellor said to me, now you go back and you tell him, and I remember these words verbatim. She said, tell him, I'm not asking you to apply. I'm telling you I'm applying. So I trot over, a little penguin shuffle, knock, knock. Hi, I'm not asking you to apply. I'm telling you to apply. He then, over this big brown oak desk, picks up this yellow UCAS form, throws it across the table. It falls on the floor. Pick it up, yeah, apply, send you £25, go to the office, blah, blah, blah. Next minute, long story short, I apply. Into my history teacher helps me, so I do history degree. I apply, get interview, get an offer, get in. Freshers week, I get a card in my pigeonhole. So at Cambridge, you have a little plodge, pigeonhole. And it's a card from the vice principal saying, congratulations, like, have a nice time at Cambridge. And I'm sitting there like...
Wow, you tried to block me.
I mean, but for some reason, I left it. Okay, well, okay. If you like, you don't like. If you don't like, you like, I'm here. 3 years later, graduation, another card in my pigeonhole from him. Saying, congratulations on graduation. I'm so glad you decided to apply despite my initial reservations.
Oh, at least he acknowledged that.
He never forgot.
Oh, wow.
3 years later, and he never forgot. Part of me wonders if he was waiting to see if I would graduate.
Yeah.
On a slide. But it's just interesting. And that's, for me, was a real turning point in my life because I realized that we all look out, but we don't have the same horizons. And if I had allowed him to limit my horizons, the trajectory of my life would have changed. Right? Whether we like it or not, the trajectory of, like, the entire trajectory of my life would have changed. And actually those around me, because what I learned in that environment, I've been able to use to inspire, uplift, but actually to give the cheat code to people around me. So that's just a little side story.
Love it. So I need to unpack it because you said so much. So you go to Cambridge. Did you apply for Oxford as well? No,
I applied for Cambridge, specifically to Cambridge and specifically to Peterhouse. So some folks actually, they go into the pool, but I didn't want to go into the pool. So I just basically, and I had never been to Cambridge. I think I only found out it was like a collegiate system, like when I was applying. Didn't know much about it. Don't know anybody that went to Cambridge.
So why Cambridge? Because everyone does history.
So yeah, but I applied to Cambridge and I applied to Peterhouse because they were the best college for history at Cambridge the year I applied. And Cambridge was #1 in the world the year I applied. That's the only reason. I'm Nigerian.
Yeah, well...
If we're going to shoot for the stars, make it be a big
star.
Yeah,
exactly. Go, what's it? Go hard or go home?
I go home and I didn't want to go home. So it had to be hard.
So how did it make you feel when you actually got into... Did it sink in that you are going to... Obviously, you did the research, but did it kind of compute that you are in the best institution of learning in the planet for your subject at that time?
Do you know what it is? I think it did and it didn't. And I think it did because people reminded me constantly. And my mum was very proud of it. And it was a thing. And it traveled in circles and in realms. And it was always in conversation. So I was constantly reminded that I'm at Cambridge. And I think that also added to pressure because I almost felt like I'm the first of the people around me in this environment. I have to do well. I have to be able to be an influence and a role model. I can't afford to come here and fail. But on the other hand, it was also like when I got there, I was like, yep, I'm in Cambridge because I went to Peterhouse, so smallest college in Cambridge, founded in 1281, the oldest college in Cambridge. People referred to it as very pale, male and stale, very conservative in many ways. And I was the only black person in my undergrad. And then at the first year I came, there was one black lady, Mariama, lovely. And she was in, postgrad. We were the only 2 black people in the entire college, about 300 people. So I also knew I was in Cambridge.
Wow.
And for some people, I was the first black person they'd ever met.
Wow.
I remember one person being fascinated by the fact that my hand is this color and then my palm is that color because they'd never seen a black person before. And I remember one of them said to me... And they're English. And they're English and they live in this country. And one of them said to me, but you need to remember, like, where I live, I drive to my closest neighbor.
Yeah.
And then you realize people are living in a different world to you. And that was the first time I realized that London even though commercially it feels like it's the center of the UK, in the Cambridge world, it was, it's the Gloucestershires, it's the Yorkshires, it's the people are living in a different realm, different access, different privileges. And it was the first time I realized that sometimes we talk about being on the outside looking in. Some of us don't even know where the house is to even be outside looking in. You don't even know what exists.
Yeah.
And so it was a very interesting experience. And I was like, yeah, I'm in Cambridge.
And did you thrive in it? Did you struggle?
First year, first term, I wanted to go home. Came home crying, hated it. The cultural thing for me, like I said, I'm very South London, okay? Even at work, we're doing a thing around accents and dialects, and someone said to me, oh, you're from London, so would you say you're kind of like West London? I said, I'm not West London. They were like, I said, I'm South East London. They were like, all like Cockney. I said, no, more like London rapper.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm blackety black to my core. So being in a Cambridge environment was challenging because I didn't expect to have to assimilate. I just assumed very naively, just like it is in South London, that we all just get references and shows and stuff like that. So it took a lot for me to assimilate, and I just didn't like it. It took too much work. But then
just to socialize.
And we had the ACS. But even the ACS, how would you describe it? You had some people who were like, they were ready to be black, and some people who were not ready to be black. And so that was even a kind of like, you two, you went to certain kind of school, you don't want to be black, that's fine, don't be black. I'm black, I'm Nigerian. Yeah. So it was also that. So after first time, I was like, I'm not coming back. Mum's like, you must go back. So I went back. And actually, I'm glad I stuck it out.
So your first year went well academically?
Yeah, so all my years went well academically, but actually I think for me personally, my second year was probably my best year because I was really into ACS, loved it. And then my third year actually, so first year I spent a lot of time in my college with a few like of my black friends. Second year we got an influx of black folks across colleges in Cambridge, so the younger year. And then our ACS really thrived and I loved it. I was on part of the ACS secretary. And then third year I actually decided I want to be a student. Like I really want to be a historian. So I really got into my subject and I loved it, and that's where I really, really thrived as well. So glad for the experience. I think when I was 18, Cambridge felt like it was like the hardest place in the world to be in. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm old, I'm like, actually it was all right. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It really wasn't. I mean, I've got friends who went to London universities, and the stories I'm hearing there, listen, Cambridge was a breeze. Breeze.
So why history? And that's my A question. And B question is, what was the career perspective after doing a history degree?
So you sound like my mum. But for me, I just said, if I'm going to go to university, I want to do something I enjoy. That was literally it. Like there was no other, I didn't.
Mum said, enjoying what they
that's it.
Academically.
Mum said, is it you want to be a librarian? You want to be a teacher? You want to be a historian? I said, none of the above. I just want to go and do something I enjoy. Because part of what I didn't say in the story about my whole UCAS process is I was heavily encouraged to apply for law. Right. But then when the career council was asking me, why do you want to do law? I couldn't defend it. I was like, because I just feel like, she's like, yeah, I've seen this, you're Nigerian, I've seen this time and time again, you don't want to do law, what do you really want to do? I said, I want to do history. She said, okay, that's what you should apply for. And that's how it happened, because I enjoyed history, I enjoy learning, I enjoyed like kind of looking back to see how the past impacts our present and future and all of that stuff, so.
Yeah. Right, and then what career did you want to have after?
I didn't really think, I'm going to be honest.
Brilliant. This is so good.
Just decided to do it, and whatever happened, happened. Although I did want to be a banker.
But you didn't do finance?
I know, but I just wanted to be a banker.
In what sense? Like,
because I really wanted to drive an Audi TT, like carry nice bags and wear Louboutins, and that was it.
You are South East London, so the fact that you mentioned TT, I know exactly.
I needed a blacked out TT. Shout out to So Solid. Yeah, I needed a blacked out TT. And actually, I did an internship in banking.
Oh, really?
In my second year, and I realized it was not for me.
Forward thinking.